shadows grow thin. Shapes of strength in the fight within. Rhythms pounding like the earth's heartbeat. Warriors rise where the worlds compete. Step by step, your legends near. Every kick breaks through the fear. Wisdom flows in the sweat you gain. Buddha cast calls, ignite the flame.
Okay, let's dive in. Today we're looking at some recent sources, some news articles actually, and they really highlight something you might not expect when you think about people who are, super fit, really disciplined.
Exactly. We're talking about the surprising, sometimes hidden challenges faced by individuals who are deeply involved in martial arts.
Right. We've got three main stories we're pulling from. There's one about a pretty serious health battle.
Another one details a really devastating training injury and the huge lawsuit that followed.
And the third touches on some very public, very difficult personal and legal issues happening completely off the map.
Yeah, completely separate from the training itself.
So our goal here, our kind of mission for this deep dive, isn't just to recount these events.
No, not at all.
We want to unpack them a bit, see what they tell us maybe about vulnerability, about risk, and also about resilience. Because, you might assume someone who spends their life mastering their body, their mind through martial arts, they're somehow shielded.
Right, like they have this extra layer of protection against life's curveballs. But these sources, they paint a much more complicated picture, a more human picture, really.
Okay, so let's start with a story that really kind of challenges that idea of invincibility head on. Julius Magnoni. This comes from Kent Live.
Yeah, this one really stood out. I mean, this guy, Julius, on paper, he's the absolute picture of health, of discipline.
Totally. Lifelong martial artist, 6th Dan black belt in karate. That's serious dedication.
Decades of it. Super fit, lived this incredibly healthy lifestyle, didn't drink, didn't smoke, ate well. The works.
And he wasn't just practicing. He was teaching for over 40 years, ran his own club.
While holding down a full-time job. I mean, this is someone you'd absolutely point to as an example of peak condition.
Exactly. But then, just like that, seemingly out of nowhere, this symptom appears.
Sudden breathlessness. And not during intense training, just climbing the stairs. Something he did multiple times a day, every day, without a thought.
Wow. That must have been terrifying. Your body's suddenly not doing what it always does.
Absolutely. And his first thought, naturally, was his heart.
Makes sense. But the path to finding out what was really wrong, that sounds like its own ordeal.
It often is, isn't it? He sees the GP, gets tests, heart's strong, which is good news, obviously, but
leaves you wondering, okay, so what is it then?
Exactly. So more tests, urgent blood tests, then a referral to hematology, and eventually a biopsy. It's this slow, unnerving process of elimination, revealing something serious was going on.
And the diagnosis, when it finally came in September 2019.
It was a complete shock. Stage 3 myeloma. It's a type of blood cancer.
Stage 3, wow.
Yeah. He talked about just feeling shock, numbness. He saw the Macmillan nurse come into the room, and his mind immediately jumped to, end-of-life care.
That immediate association people make. It's powerful.
It really is. He felt the sort of emptiness, just wanted to be alone to try and process it. And his friends, they had that same reaction. We talked about disbelief, like him. He's the last person you'd ever expect to get cancer.
It just hammers home that point, doesn't it? Fitness, discipline, they're amazing, but they don't grant immunity. His fight was really just starting then.
He started chemo in November 2019. And you mentioned this earlier. Get this, he actually pushed the start date back slightly.
Why?
So he could compete in a karate competition.
No way. That's intense dedication right there.
Tells you something about his mindset, right? But then, July 2020, he had a stem cell transplant. And devastatingly, it wasn't successful.
Oh, man.
He called that a massive low point. And you can only imagine going through all that, the physical toll, the hope, and then it doesn't work.
Crushing is probably an understatement.
Absolutely. But this is where you maybe see that resilience, maybe something honed over all those years in the dojo really kick in.
How so?
Facing that failure, that massive low point, he didn't just collapse into despair. He made a conscious choice. He told himself, look, worrying isn't going to change this. Gotta stay positive. Keep fighting.
That mental shift.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. And thankfully, there was another option. In August 2020, he started a new drug, lenalidomide.
Which apparently hadn't been available on the NHS before that.
That's right. And the good news, according to the article, is that he's doing really well on it now.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, he's in remission, no side effects reported, just needs regular checkups. But what's really striking is his whole outlook now.
Like how?
He talks about living in the present, really focusing on the moment, and he directly credits his karate training for teaching him how to do that. Wakes up every morning just feeling grateful, not dwelling on tomorrow too much.
That's a powerful perspective to gain through such hardship.
It really is. And his gratitude, it extends outwards, too. He's incredibly thankful for the scientists developing these new treatments, holds on to hope for the future, for the next generation facing this.
Yeah, the article mentioned the only time he really broke down was seeing children with cancer.
It just underscores the human side of all this research, the hope it represents. And it circles back to that idea of vulnerability. It's not just personal, it affects everyone.
Definitely. And just for context, myeloma, the source notes, it's a blood cancer from plasma cells. Affects thousands in the UK alone. His story is a powerful reminder it can touch anyone.
Anyone, regardless of how strong or fit they seem.
Okay, so that's one angle. Peak fitness doesn't equal immunity from serious illness. But what about the risks inside the training environment? The risks that are, part of the deal with martial arts?
Right. Our next story zooms right in on that, and it's about how those inherent risks can be, amplified dramatically. This is the case of Jack Greener, reported by the New York Post.
This one is tough.
It's incredibly difficult. Jack Greener, he was just starting out. A white belt in Jiu-Jitsu. A beginner.
Just learning the ropes?
Exactly. And in 2018, he's sparring with his instructor, Francisco Iturralde. Now, Iturralde is a second-degree black belt, apparently, with his nickname, Sinistro.
Sinistro, like sinister.
Yeah, that's what it means, supposedly reflecting a particularly aggressive training style.
Okay, that sets a certain tone already.
Yeah.
And the sparring session went terribly wrong.
Horrifically wrong. The article describes a specific technique. The instructor flipped Greener forward, but in a way that twisted his neck. And crucially, during the lawsuit later, an expert witness, BJJ legend Renner Gracie, no less testified that the instructor put his entire body weight on Greener's neck.
Oh my God. The entire body weight on the neck of a beginner.
The result was instantaneous and catastrophic. Paralysis from the neck down, quadriplegia.
Just like that.
Just like that. Crushed cervical vertebrae, and this happened just weeks before he was supposed to graduate college. His whole life changed in a second, on the mat.
That's unimaginable. Months in the hospital, multiple strokes too, the article said.
Yeah, compounding the initial trauma, just absolutely devastating consequences.
And obviously this led to legal action. He sued the Jiu-Jitsu club, the Del Mar Jiu-Jitsu club, blamed the instructor's actions.
Understandably. And the outcome of that lawsuit was, frankly, enormous. In 2023, a jury awarded him $46 million.
$46 million.
The club appealed, took it higher, but the verdict held. First, an appellate panel affirmed it. Then the California Supreme Court declined to even hear their appeal.
So the verdict stands.
Absolutely. And with the interest that's accrued since the initial verdicts, the total award is now over $56 million.
Wow. $56 million. That sends a message.
It really does. And his attorney, Rahul Ravipudi, made a point of saying this wasn't just about the money, huge as it is. He framed it as a victory for injured athletes generally.
How so?
Because the ruling reinforces a really important principle. Instructors, training facilities, they can be held legally accountable when their actions unreasonably increase risks beyond those inherent in the sport.
That distinction is key, isn't it? The difference between inherent risk and unreasonably increased risk.
Absolutely vital. Look, anyone training martial arts, especially grappling arts like BJJ, knows there are risks. You might get bumps, bruises, sprains, maybe even breaks. You accept a level of danger stepping onto the mat.
You sign the waiver, you understand that.
Right. But this case drew a line in the sand. It said there's that inherent risk, and then there's negligence. There's creating danger that goes way beyond what's acceptable or necessary for training, especially with a beginner. The legal system said that line was crossed here decisively.
It puts a huge spotlight on instructor responsibility, the duty of care they have, especially towards less experienced students.
Definitely. And despite this horrific, life-altering injury, Jack Greener's story also has that thread of resilience, similar to Julius's in a way.
What's he doing now?
The article mentions he's adapted incredibly. He's now a mountain climber and a motivational speaker.
From quadriplegia to mountain climbing. That's
Astounding. An unbelievable testament to the human spirit, right? Finding a new path, a different kind of strength after losing so much physically.
truly incredible. Okay, so we've seen illness from outside, injury from inside the training room. Now, let's shift to challenges that are completely separate from the physical practice of martial arts, but still involve major figures from that world.
Right. And this brings us to the recent reports about BJ Penn. Many people will know him, former dominant UFC champion, Hall of Famer, considered one of the all-time great lightweights.
He retired from professional MMA back in 2019 after a tough run towards the end of his career.
Yeah, a string of losses. But the recent news, reported by ESPN, concerns events entirely off the mat. Specifically, a series of arrests in late May of this year, 2025.
Arrests. Plural.
Yes, 3 arrests in just 6 days.
3 times in less than a week. That sounds intense. What happened?
According to a report, he was arrested on a Sunday, then released on $2,000 bail. Arrested again the very next day, Monday, released on a $1,000 bail.
Okay.
Then the third arrest came on Friday. That one was apparently for missing a mandatory court date related to the earlier incidents and also for violating the bail terms from those arrests.
And what were the initial charges stemming from the Sunday and Monday arrests?
The report states he's facing charges for abuse of a family or household member.
Okay. And the missed court date?
The article mentions he told a Hawaiian news outlet he missed it because he was suffering from COVID.
Right. The ESPN piece also brings in some other context, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About his recent social media activity.
It does. It adds another layer to what's been happening publicly. It references recent claims he's made online, alleging that multiple family members are actually missing.
Missing.
Yes, and he's accused unnamed imposters of replacing them, supposedly to steal his inheritance. He's even publicly asked the police to investigate their alleged murders.
Wow, those are very serious and unusual claims.
Extremely. He apparently posted on Instagram back in April expressing fear about these alleged frauds, worrying about harm coming to him or him harming them, and appealing directly to police and his old training partners, his black belt friends, for help.
So, this whole situation, as it's being reported, it seems to involve really complex personal issues, legal troubles, and these very concerning public statements.
Absolutely. It's happening entirely outside the context of fighting or training, but involves someone synonymous with high-level martial arts. It's a stark reminder that life's difficulties, whatever their nature, personal, legal, mental health, they don't stop at the gym door.
Right. Even for someone who achieved so much through physical combat and discipline.
Exactly. The struggles can be completely unrelated to that world.
Okay, so let's try and tie these threads together. We have Julius Magnoni, the picture of health, hit with unexpected cancer. We have Jack Greener, the beginner, suffering a life-altering injury during training due to allegedly instructor negligence, resulting in a massive legal judgment.
Right.
And we have BJ Penn, the celebrated former champion, dealing with recent arrests and making these really troubling claims publicly. 3 very different people, 3 vastly different kinds of challenges, but all deeply connected to the world of martial arts.
And I think looking at them together is where it gets really interesting. You take Julius, his story just completely upends that common assumption, right? That peak physical fitness somehow shields you.
It totally shatters it. It shows that, your body, no matter how well you care for it, is still subject to biology, to illness. The real lesson in humility, perhaps, strength isn't always enough against certain things.
Exactly. Then Jack's story forces us to look really hard at risk within the training space. We know martial arts carry risk. We sign up for that, in a way.
Yeah, you accept bumps and bruises are part of learning.
But this case highlights the critical difference between that inherent risk, the unavoidable possibility of getting hurt, and risk that's created or magnified by someone's actions, by negligence.
That $56 million verdict becomes more than just money. It's a statement about where responsibility lies.
Yeah.
About the duty of care.
Precisely. It puts the burden on instructors, on gyms, to make sure training doesn't cross that line into being unreasonably dangerous. It's about accountability.
And then, BJ Penn's situation.
Yeah.
It's a powerful illustration that sometimes the toughest battles have zero connection to physical combat.
Right. It shows that personal struggles, legal issues, mental health challenges, these things exist for everyone, regardless of their athletic achievements or public profile. The discipline needed for martial arts doesn't automatically translate into smoothly navigating every other aspect of life.
So when you put these 3 narratives side by side, they really drive home that vulnerability isn't just about being physically weak, it's just part of being human, isn't it?
It really is. It shows up as unexpected illness, as the terrible consequences of someone else's mistake, or as complex personal problems playing out publicly. Discipline and past success don't make you immune.
But, and this is important too, within these stories of really tough challenges, we also see these incredible flashes of resilience, of adaptation.
Definitely. Julius finding gratitude, focusing on the present, drawing strength from his karate mindset, even while fighting cancer.
And Jack. I mean, adapting to quadriplegia by becoming a mountain climber and a speaker. That's redefining strength entirely.
It is. So they're not just stories about falling down. They're also about how people respond, how they adapt, how they find new ways forward, sometimes redefining what strength even means to them.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder. You can train your body, train your mind, strive for peak condition.
Yeah.
But you can't control everything.
Not even close. But maybe what you can influence is your response, how you adapt, and certainly in the context of training, the standards of safety and accountability we expect and enforce.
So wrapping this up, we've taken this deep dive into these sources, these recent stories. Julius Magnoni's unexpected illness.
Jack Greener's devastating training injury and the landmark legal case.
And the off-map personal and legal challenges reported around BJ Penn. We've drawn these directly from the news reports provided.
And what comes through, I think, isn't just a series of unfortunate events. It's a broader insight, maybe, into how unpredictable life is. The limits of physical discipline against some kinds of adversity.
The absolute necessity of safety and accountability in potentially dangerous activities like martial arts training.
And just the reality that personal struggles are universal. They exist outside of any arena or dojo.
So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, to take away is this. When you consider these different kinds of challenges, unexpected illness, catastrophic injury, complex personal issues hitting people who seem to embody physical power and discipline, what does it really mean to be strong?
Yeah, physically and mentally, especially when life throws those punches you absolutely cannot train for, the ones you never see coming, something to think about.
Color rising now, color rising up.